Welcome to the program.
Hi, Sudhar. Great to see you.
Tim, we have been going through a very turbulent, very uncertain times, and leaders are trying to navigate through this very uncertain time. So how can design mindset help these leaders navigate through these uncharted waters?
Well, I think, design at a high level is probably one of the most powerful tools that a business has, and that, the ability for design to have an impact is dependent on the way we think about it. We often think about design as it's, the look and the feel, the materials, those kind of more commonly understood things, but we very seldom focus on the purpose or the human outcomes that are critical to successful design. So when we think of this type of situation, we look at something that we call a value creation engine. Value creation engine has to do with somewhat inverting the way that we're typically taught to think about design and to think about business, and start to think about it with a little bit different structure. And what that means is we tend to focus on human outcomes as the primary first bucket of information, if you will. And then the second one is strategy, and the third one are tactics. And we're most commonly familiar with approaching something in a tactical way. That's the way we're trained in school. It's the way we understand the world. But the idea of starting with human outcomes does a number of things. First of all, it makes it a human-centric solution that you're working toward, that you're achieving something that actually has a positive human outcome. And there are all sorts of benefits that you can associate with that, from financial to social to many other types of outcomes. But from there, the strategy that you form can be the right strategy that you approach the problem with. So in other words, if it's focused on human outcomes, that strategy, if it doesn't deliver those outcomes, is probably the wrong strategy. And then at the third level, you can start to talk about tactics. And in the tactics area, if the tactics do not support that strategy, then you fundamentally have a higher risk at achieving success, because your focus is really on a tactical type of outcome. And so many companies fail because they take a tactical approach, and that tactic didn't necessarily create value for the business. And so to me, that's at the heart of how to use design as a very valuable, productive tool.
That brings us to my second question, because I will be just asking you how companies are implementing this approach. But before that, we have also been writing a lot about making everything human-centered. We have been writing a lot of articles about putting human at the center of everything. So regarding to this approach, how well do you think companies and leaders comprehend and execute the human design center strategy, and how well it is established in our way of doing business today and in the near future?
I would say the answer is not very well. That it's not as commonly understood. I think it's something that is easy to get caught up in the tactical part, because it's easier to manage and to think about. Being human-centric is really just looking at the things. If you want to create something of value, you have to create things that other people value. And so it's obvious to me that you want to identify what those things are, and then design and achieve things of value by focusing on that. So to me, that framework is a basis for almost how we approach any design problem. But I don't think that every company or every leader really looks at things through that lens.
So what should we do in order to cascade this approach more in the organizational? How can we encourage or how can we enable leaders, people, colleagues to have a better perspective on this human-centered design, and how can we make human-centered design more integrated to the way of doing business and organization?
Yeah, well, I think it's important for people to understand why why would you do that? You know, when most people look at design, a lot of times it's considered kind of a soft art or a soft skill. Is it going to really drive my business? Is it really going to create value? Once they understand the type of impact that you can have by focusing on human outcomes, then they start to appreciate the fact that the decision tree that they go through is always looking at that as a primary way of understanding whether or not they're achieving the objectives that design can achieve for their business.
So Tim, let's focus on a little bit of community approach. How do you see the role of human-centric design in shaping the transformation of communities? Does this role only impact to physical spaces, or does it also influence culture and relationships as well?
Yeah, I mean, the way we would think about it is that there's probably 4 primary experience realms. So the first thing that you think about is if you want to be a company or you want to be a place or a destination, what has to happen is the values that you stand for need to align with the values of the people that you want to attract. So that's really at the core. There has to be an opportunity for a relationship to occur. If there is that opportunity, then there are 4 primary ways to think about the experience that you're designing so that you actually are doing the most that you can do to achieve a successful relationship. So that's the environment. So when you think about the physical spaces or any of the architecture context of a particular condition, whether that's a city and you're talking about urban planning and communities, or whether that's a retail space. You want to look at the environments. You want to look at the products and services that you're providing. So if you are a destination for tourism, are you providing the products and services that people who are coming to that location deem to be valuable? Then the other is you look at the behavior, and this has to do with interpersonal behavior. So if you're going to a destination or you're engaging with a brand, the people that you're interacting with are one of the primary touch points that a company or a city has to communicate those values that they stand for. And then the 4th thing is the communications. And so this is whether it's digital communications, whether it's print, whether it's other forms of communications, how you talk about it, how you actually share what your values are becomes an essential 4th component. So we really see those 4 experience realms as the basis for providing an experience that communicates those successful outcomes.
One of the latest trends that we have been writing a lot and talking a lot about is empowering communities, say it in society, in business, in organizations. Anywhere we look, we see a huge trend for empowering and enabling community values. So how do you believe the design process contributes to empowering communities? For instance, promoting inclusivity or fostering co-creation throughout these communities?
Well, I think those types of things have to be defined as part of the human outcomes, part of the experience outcomes that you're looking to achieve. And if you're able to do that well, you have an opportunity then to take each of those experience realms and elevate that value that you're saying that you stand for. So it's important to articulate what you stand for, and then it's important to deliver on it. As it pertains to building successful communities, what you tend to find are a number of different examples you could point to around the world where groups of people have taken to an expression of a set of values, and that's either defined their country, that's defined their city, it's defined their village, it's defined their business, it's defined their home. And so you can take those things all the way through that type of structure, but that, you know, if you're going to build successful communities, then the inputs, you know, it's the sort of no one is stronger than everyone, right? You're able to get insights and input from other people who share your community and help strengthen that community through that dialogue and through that interaction.
Tim, as you already know, Turkey has experienced a severe earthquake a couple of months ago. So in the context of post-disaster community reconstruction, how do you think design can encourage community participation and foster development of a shared vision? For instance, how can design contribute to building a sustainable future for those post-disaster communities?
Well, you know, obviously, to start with, it was extraordinarily tragic type of event that occurred, and you know, with almost every situation like that, I think it's important to look at what opportunities have been created, and what are things that you can do to improve the performance of either a similar situation occurring, or improve the conditions in which you know the people are living. And so I think that, you know, the way to look at it is to imagine the opportunities to bring that together as a way of thinking about the problems that you're solving, and be able to take insights from the learnings that came from it. You know, if you look back through the history of pandemics, there have been pandemics occur in many places around the world over the years, and in most cases, we've tried to learn from the previous one and not repeat the mistakes of the past. So I think it's important that you know, the event has occurred. There's not a lot you can do about that at this point, other than to learn from it and to bring that to bear in terms of the thinking of how you would approach the reconstruction of the community or the recreation of an environment in a more successful way.
Tim, last but not least, you have been working a lot with different companies from different industries, and you have a holistic view of what they are working on. So what will be a couple of challenges that we will be facing in the near future as companies, as leaders, and how can design help leaders cope with those challenges?
That's a pretty big question.
You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the ones that I met with a gentleman who was one of the founders of Skype, and he was telling us that one of the things that he's working on right now is how to solve for the inevitable kind of difficulties that we're going to encounter as artificial intelligence progresses. And the way he described it was he wanted to focus on things that would try to keep artificial intelligence from arriving at the conclusion that we are nothing more than friction and that we should be taken out. So, you know, I think there's a lot of people who are anxious around the evolution of artificial intelligence. I think it's probably one of the bigger challenges from a technology standpoint that we have. You know, I've listened to a number of you know, leaders in government, etc., who talk about how to deal with technology. But for the most part, it's remarkably embarrassing that they know so little about it. And I think that we don't have the capacity, at least in our leadership, to address the kinds of challenges that we're going to encounter in artificial intelligence at the rate of change that we're going to encounter them.
Tim, thank you very much for being with us and sharing your insights. Really appreciate.
Thank you, Siddharth. Great to see you.